Whether you're a new hunter or an experienced hunter, at some point you've probably asked yourself, is the cheap ammo good enough to hunt with? I'm talking about stuff like Remington Corelokt, and I'm not talking about Corelokt bonded or Corelokt tipped, the regular stuff, the old school stuff. I'm talking about stuff like Winchester PowerPoint Super X. I'm talking about stuff like Federal Blue Box, Federal PowerShok. Is this stuff good enough to hunt with? Because if you're watching the hunting shows today, if you're listening to the podcast, if you're reading the magazines, if you're just immersed in that world, you would think that, there's no way that old school stuff like Grandpa used could possibly still work. So real quick, without a whole bunch of fanfare, I'm going to tell you about my personal experience with ammo like that. Ammo like Remington Corelokt, Winchester Super X, Federal PowerShok. So I'll go ahead and start with the ammo I have the most experience with, and that is Remington Corelokt. So I've killed deer and wild hogs with 270 Winchester 150 grain, 270 Winchester 130 grain, 30-06 150 grain, 30-30 Winchester 150 grain, and probably one or two other cartridges and weights. And I've never had anything but an absolutely stellar experience with Remington Corelokt ammo. Oh, also 100 grain 243 as well. I forgot about that one. As far as the on-game performance of the Remington Corelokt ammo that I've used, on whitetail deer, it's been a one-shot stop every single time, and most of those times they fall down dead right in their tracks. And not only that, but with every cartridge and bullet weight except 243, I've had complete penetration. And the same can be said for my wild hog hunting experience with Remington Corelokt. Most of the time they go right down. One time I had a particularly large ornery hog take up a few shots, but that was the exception to the rule, and that was with a 30-30 at somewhat extended range. In total, using Remington Corelokt ammo and various cartridges and bullet weights, between myself and my dad, we've probably killed several dozen deer, wild hog, axis deer. My dad killed a lot of exotics with the stuff. Never a bad experience at all. And if you've got a 270 Winchester and you want a real hammer of God type load, I highly suggest the 150 grain round nose Remington Corelokt. That thing freaking lays them down. Now, I haven't ever recovered a whole lot of bullets from game that I've shot with any of this ammo because most of the time I get complete penetration, which is what you want. But I have recovered a few, so right here I'll show you one. This was a 100 grain Remington Corelokt fired out of a 243 at a whitetail buck quartering towards me at about 20 yards. So this thing hit fast and hard. It penetrated all the way through the front shoulder, all the way through the deer, and buried just under the skin, under the rear ham. Okay, so that's some pretty outstanding performance from a 243 100 grain bullet. And I did weigh it. It weighs 67 grains, so it retains 67% of its mass. Not bad for an old school cup and core bullet. And that's a relatively lightweight bullet moving pretty darn quick at close range. If you were using a heavier caliber with a heavier bullet, I'd wager to say you'd have even better weight retention, which is probably how come you get complete penetration so often. All right, now I'm going to talk about my experience with Winchester PowerPoint ammo. I've got a little bit less experience with this. The two loads that I have used extensively with the Winchester PowerPoint is 270 Winchester 150 grain and 30-30 Winchester 150 grain, and both have performed absolutely spectacularly on deer and wild hogs both. With the 270 load, I've never had anything but complete penetration and deer drop in their tracks. With 150 grain 30-30, I mostly use that to hunt wild pigs. And if you get an odd angle like a real forward on shot or a quartering away type shot, and that bullet has to go through a lot of pig if it's a big pig, I don't always get complete penetration. But if they're broadside, I do, and regardless, they go down pretty quick. And briefly, I'll talk about Federal PowerShok blue box stuff. It's what I have the least experience with. I've only killed one deer with it so far, but it performed about the same as Remington Corelokt. I got a good entry, good exit wound, good blood trail. I can't complain the deer went down hard. So I just wanted to make this video real quick to kind of set your mind at ease about using ammo like Corelokt, Super X, PowerShok. You can trust the stuff. It's been around for a long, long time for a reason. You don't have to get the super duper fancy stuff just to go deer hunting or pig hunting. Now, as far as your bigger game like elk, moose, brown bear goes, I can't speak to it with personal experience. I've never hunted any of that stuff, but what I can say is that people killed a whole lot of moose, a whole lot of elk, a whole lot of bear way back before all the fancy new ammo came around using stuff like this. But a good rule of thumb, if you're going to be hunting bigger game like that, or if you just want to ensure the best penetration possible, is what the old timers used to say: just use a heavy for caliber bullet. So for example, if you're shooting a 270 Winchester, use the 150 grain bullet instead of the 130. If you're hunting with a 30-06, use a 180 grain bullet instead of the 150. Just use a heavy for caliber bullet to ensure maximum penetration, and you'll be all right. And let me and everybody else know in the comments what your experience has been with ammo like this, with Corelokt, PowerPoint, PowerShok, other stuff. Have you had any bad experiences with it, or like me, have your experiences been overwhelmingly positive? And check out my leather shop if you'd like something handmade by me just for you. The link is in the pinned comment. I'd love to make you something. Thanks for watching.